G'day YouTubers and welcome to another episode. This episode was planned to be an overnighter. I was going to go out offshore on the first day, come back in over the bar in the late afternoon and spend the next day around Moreton Bay fishing for some whiting, some squid and maybe having a look at harries and foul ground if I had some bait. Well, it went wrong from the very beginning. I checked that the batteries were charged before I left home, of course, but I got down to the ramp and found that only one of them was feeding electricity, the other one wasn't. So I had to go home to troubleshoot that. I probably could have troubleshooted at the ramp, but I wanted to have all my gear handy, make sure I did the job right, so went home. Took me about 15 minutes to fix the problem. But by then, it's an hour down to the ramp, an hour back from the ramp, another hour back down to the ramp. I didn't feel like doing it that day, so I cancelled that day and decided I'd just do a one-dayer on the Saturday. And off to a really early start this morning. It is 4:55 and I'm out past Cleveland Point. Port of Brisbane over there, Cleveland Point there. Just taking it easy for a moment until I get a little bit more light to see. Won't be long and I can put on a bit of speed. It'll be a nice day, I think. I had the recorder going on the Furuno like I have done for the last few trips. And I had some really good shots of some fish that are hanging around some structure. I wanted to show you all that. And for some reason the recorder had turned itself off quite early in the trip. And being in the cabin, I didn't know that. So I did the whole trip thinking, oh, this is great, got some really good video here. Got home and found I had none. So if it could go wrong, it did. However, I think I've salvaged it and I've got some pretty good video. Well worth seeing, I think. Particularly if you go out through South Passage Bar to do a little bit of fishing offshore. First dolly. Come on, don't you go under there. Berserk there. It'll be legal. The idea here is that I have my leader clipped onto the line with a snap swivel and I have a heap of leaders made up. So I don't have to bother unhooking the fish. I can just take the leader off and put a new one on. Not only does it save a lot of time, but it also protects me from getting a hook in my hand, trying to get the hook out of its mouth. They're quite a lively fish once they get onto the boat. Let's check your length. I'm sure you're going to be legal. Yep, you are. 60 odd. No, I've got two of yous again. I got one. This rig's using 5'0" J hooks, 40-pound leader. I'm just putting the hook in the live bait shoulder area, just below the skin. And the last few times I've gone out to fish the FADs, probably 4, 5, 6 times maybe, someone has parked themselves in front of the FAD, and most of the time it's been a charter operator. The captain stayed on the wheel and jockeyed the engines to keep himself in front of the FAD so his customers can get a fish. Now that's all well and good, he's got to make a living, but there's other people got to fish the FAD too, and taxes are paid for it. So everyone's got a right to fish it. The etiquette of fishing a FAD on the fisheries website is up on the screen now, and that stipulates that everyone has a fair go. To me that means everyone drifts the FAD, you come around the big circle, keeping clear of the FAD when you're coming back so you don't scare the fish off, and you start your drift again. And that's what I've always done. But more and more I see people spot locking on the FAD and just hogging it. I'm getting a bit cranky about it, to be honest. Please show a little bit of courtesy if you're out fishing the FAD and give everyone a go at it. And there's a couple of blokes there that pretty much hogged the FAD. I did get a couple of drifts in, but it was hard to get in close to the FAD in front of it where they were. Those blokes sat there until they'd bagged out. I don't know about one boat, but the other boat dumped a whole bucket full of blood that he'd been using to bleed the fish in into the water just before he left. I've heard experienced fishermen say that if you dump blood into the water when the Mahi-Mahi are around, it shuts down the bite. I haven't fished for Mahi-Mahi that much myself that I can have an opinion on whether that story is true or not, but if it is, dumping the blood into the water just before you leave is a pretty terrible thing to do. I think I've already mentioned that I've only been fishing the FADs for the last 2 or 3 years, so there's a lot I don't know about it, but this is a technique that's been working for me when I'm by myself out there, and also when other people that are out there are doing the same thing. Everyone gets a bit of a go at the FAD, everyone catches a few fish. Whichever direction the current is running, I start up current of the FAD, about 100 metres, 200 metres, even 300 metres if the current's strong. What you want to do is have your bait unweighted and have it waft down to where the fish are by the time you get back within 50 metres of the FAD. Once you get past the FAD, I see very few fish caught on the far side of the FAD, so as soon as your bait's past it and your bait's past it, you may as well pull in and go back to the start. When you're going back to the start of your drift, go wide of the FAD at least 100 metres, more if you're going fast, because you don't want to scare the fish away. And if all the boats go racing past the FAD in close, you will shut down the bite. From FAD 15 I headed over to the 29 fathom line off Moreton to try my luck there. I wish the video hadn't failed because there's a lot of fish there and I got some good images of structure and fish, but I couldn't get any of them to bite. There's a lot of current running at the time, so I think that was the majority of the problem. Part of the original plan for the overnighter was to go down to 7's Reef and do a survey of that and have a bit of a fish there after I'd done the survey and found out where the fish were. Having cut the trip back from an overnighter to a one-day trip, I also had to cut back my plans at 7's Reef. I had enough time left to go down there and complete the survey, but I didn't have any time left to fish it once I'd done the survey before I had to get back in. But at least I could accomplish my major aim at 7's Reef. Again, something Mr. Bait stocks, patrolling ballyhoo and the like. Hoping I remember enough about it, I don't need the instructions. Now, what we've got to do, go in through his bum and out through his mouth, get that out of there, and hook that on the needle, and then pull it through. Got it? You pull it through, so the hook sits like that. Drop that through the hole there without getting it caught. And then poke his eye. Pull the eye right out, won't matter, or just poke it through and drop that through the centre. Oh, he'll run it. Okay, that's got that clipped. Now I just need a rod. I don't know whether floating scum counts, but if you come across a lot of floating seaweed, it's worth having a troll along the edge of it. I did have a little troll around this scum that was floating on the surface. I didn't do any good. I didn't really expect to do any good. Usually find some fish around it when it's seaweed, But I've tried the scum a few times and it doesn't seem to have the same fish attracting qualities. Can't say I blame them. But nevertheless, I wanted to have a troll around 7's Reef while I was taking the soundings, so I had to get the trolling gear ready anyways. This gave me the opportunity. Only took a few minutes to have a quick little troll around the scum, and then I was on to 7's Reef. I put the trolling gear out again once I got to 7's Reef and left it out while I scanned the area. I didn't really expect to do very good down there either because I was over top of the reef a lot and not out around the edges where I expected to find more of the pelagic fish. Nevertheless, if you haven't got a line in the water, you're not going to do any good at all, so it never hurts to throw one out on the off chance. As I was doing the survey, I thought, oh gee, this is going to look great played on fast forward, showing you just how it paints the structure down there. The Furuno really comes into its own when it gets a little bit of depth under it. For instance, looking at the track on the way in, the water depth is 48 metres, and that allows the Furuno with its 120-degree fan to paint an area of almost 100 metres wide on the bottom. And what that means in practical terms is that I can survey a given area much quicker to find out if there's any fish there and exactly where they're holding, because I can see 50 metres either side of my boat. I'm just flashing up the marks that I've given out in the previous video for 7's Reef. That's all the red crosses that you see flashing on and off on the screen. If you haven't got the marks already, they're all in the 7's Reef segment of the offshore series. You can have a look at that playlist to find them. And there's 10 marks here, the black fish symbols that are currently flashing on the screen. That's the 10 decent schools of largish fish that I saw when I surveyed 7's Reef. I didn't have time to stop and try fishing any of them, but they were down there. The complete survey took me just under an hour. I didn't time it exactly because I expected to have the video of the survey and to be able to get the times off that, but I think it was around about 50 minutes. And in that time, I found 10 schools of fish that could have been fished. As I said earlier, it is the Furuno DFF3D unit that allows me to survey the area so quickly and find where all the fish are. But if you take a bit of time with a normal sounder, you still have a fair chance of finding the fish. You just got to work out a pattern where you can cover the area reasonably close together so that your sounder gets a look at the entire bottom. If you just do a haphazard pass over it on any old direction, then it's hit and miss whether you're going to find out where the fish are. However, if you take these marks that I've given you, it gives you a bit of an idea of the areas to look, so if you hit all the marks and travel between them, with a normal sounder you've still got a fair chance. As you can see, there's a fair area covered by the reef. It's about 600 metres long and nearly 500 wide. So that's 30,000 square metres or about 30 acres. Fair area to cover if you've got to do it with a traditional sonar and a narrow cone. The DFF3D is what allowed me to do it very quickly and thoroughly. I'll just take a minute to move the mouse around the structure in fish tracks so you can see the latitude, longitude and the depth. What you should notice while I'm doing this is the steepness of the drop-offs where the depth changes. There's only a few metres movement and the depth changes quite a lot. Now that's good structure for fish to hang around because the bait hangs around it, but what you need to know is the current and where the fish will hold on that structure in a particular current. But if you don't know that, you've got a sounder on board, you can hunt around and find them. I'll just flash all the marks that I have for 7's Reef all at once so you can see where they are situated, and the majority of them are around the major drop-offs. There's only a couple of marks that are up on top of the reef. The majority are on the drop-offs or on the valleys between the hills, for want of a better word. And the best thing about 7's Reef is it's not far outside the bar. I mentioned that one of the good things was that it wasn't far outside the South Passage bar, and some of you might be wondering why that would be a good thing. Well, it's a good thing because if the weather's going to turn bad in the afternoon, it gives you somewhere to go outside the bar and fish where you can get back in really quickly as soon as you get a sense that the weather's turning, or just on the forecast, just come back in before the forecast says it's going to turn. But if you're doing that, do keep an eye on the weather because it can turn unexpectedly and you don't want to be coming back across the bar in really bad weather. And here's a survey put into 3 dimensions so that we can orbit around it and have a really good look at the structure down there. It's all well and good to see the colours, and the red's the shallow area, the blue's going into the purples, getting the deepest area, but the 3D really displays what's happening down there, at least to me. I hope you get some benefit out of it as well. I'll just mention that the 3D image is generated with time0 software. That's a step up again from the Furuno TZ3. time0 software takes the PBG data and does a lot more with it than can be done on a normal MFD, because time0 runs on a standard Windows computer. Now that I've got the time0 set up as well, and the ability to generate these 3D images of the reefs, I plan to do some 3D images of all the really fishable reefs that have a lot of structure on them. There's some areas that are just flat gravel bottom, there's no point in doing a 3D image of them. But areas like this, like 7's Reef, which has a lot of structure around the group, Boat Rock, Shag Rock, Middle Reef, a little halfway reef has got some structure, all those sorts of places, and also up north of Moreton. There's a lot of areas up there that would benefit from having a 3D scan done so you can see the actual structure you're fishing on. I think it will help you pick where to go looking for the fish. Combined with the image in Fish Tracks that shows the colour coding for the depth, you can get the exact latitude and longitude of the drop-offs you're looking for and go along and have a look for the fish around there. I certainly find it beneficial. I hope you do too. I'll just slip this image in here. I took this image just as I was leaving 7's Reef after I'd done the survey. I'd already packed up the trolling gear, and lo and behold, a little bit north of the reef, there was some fish. It's not the greatest image because it was taken on the hat cam. It's one of the few reasonable images of any fish show that I got on the hat cam. It's much better if I can record off the Furuno, but as I explained earlier, that got messed up. That's it for another video. I hope you've got something out of it. 7's Reef's a really good spot to go fishing. The FAD's are a really good spot to go fishing with the Mahi-Mahi on at the moment. I just hope when you're out there, no one blocks the FAD and you get a chance to drift past it and have a go at the fish. Try and get there as early as you can, because the more boat activity there is around the FADs, the quicker the Mahi-Mahi go off the bite. And if you're looking at this on the Saturday, when it went up, you've got some great weather, so if you planned ahead you'll be out on the water and you'll see this on the Sunday. Until next time, good fishing.